Tampa, at mid-morning Friday, anticipation was heavy within the air at Bucs coaching camp, as heavy because the stifling humidity. Warmth index, precisely 100 levels. GM Jason Licht, in a Bucs-orange mask dotted with workforce logos, walked close to, not inside 6 feet, a camp customer and mentioned quietly, "The protection has been secretly scouting the offense, and the offense has been scouting the protection." The camp air horn blew. A rustling within the air, just a few whoops, up, let's get it. Interval 3 of the Bucs' 10th training camp observe could be particular. 5 months after Tom Brady signed with the Bucs, 2 months after NFL offenses and defenses would usually square off in OTA practices, and 1 month earlier than he'd quarterback his first professional recreation not for the New England Patriots, right now would function the primary observe for Brady in opposition to the feisty Tampa Bay protection. Helmets, no pads, gentle contact. Usually, you determine, who cares? It's only a soccer observe. However, on this COVID season of no low season work and a gradual return to actual observe after 2 slow played weeks of acclimation to soccer, the anticipation was justifiably amped up. Intense morning. Vomit could be spewed earlier than it was over. 3 Tampa DBs, Jamel Dean, Murphy-Bunting and Mike Edwards, had a guess, who'd decide Brady first this summer season? Undoubtedly didn't really feel like a traditional day in coaching camp, that's for certain. Backup quarterback Blaine Gabbert. This was OTA 1, what ought to have been the could 15 observe. However, now we're in a time crunch. Plus, the protection's first shot at Tom. The final go Brady had thrown in opposition to competitors was to Tennessee cornerback Logan Ryan, a pick-6 that sealed a dismal Patriots loss and ended Brady's New England profession 7 months in the past. No quarterback in professional soccer historical past has left a workforce after 20 years to start out someplace else. This was the observe that might begin to reply the most important query, non-virus division, of the 2020 NFL season. What's the 43-year-old man bought left? Shortly after 9 a.m., Brady, in a creamsicle orange observe shirt, his identify and quantity in white on the again, the one buck in back in the day calf-length white socks, bought Tampa's first offensive unit in a huddle. One thing else new, with no spring observe and distancing restrictions enforced within the first 2 weeks of camp, this was the primary huddle of calendar year 2020 for the Bucs. Think about that. In 30 days, the new-look Bucs, with a brand-new quarterback studying his first new offense in 20 years, would open in New Orleans in opposition to genius collaborators Sean Payton and Drew Brees, collectively since 2006. And right here was Tom Brady, huddling together with his new workforce for the primary time. They usually bought some work to do. On one in every of Brady's first throws as a Buc, with a linebacker bursting via the center of the road and a security blitzing from the left, coordinator Todd Bowles was not playing around on this observe. Free agent receiver Cyril Grayson busted a route. Seemed like he ought to have curled or ran an out at 8 yards. However, he ran previous that, and Brady threw to the spot he thought his receiver could be, and security Mike Edwards dove uncontested and picked it off. Edwards, you gain the guess, son bought up and exultantly sprinted down the sideline. Coach Bruce Arians, who is superb at swearing, let Grayson know that his mistake was, effectively, pricey. Grayson most likely gained it run that route mistaken once more. Brady by no means noticed Edwards cross into the top zone, nor did Brady see Edwards' underhand thrusting the ball skyward whereas his screaming mates ran to have a good time with him. Brady, impassive, walked again to see what offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich had for him. Subsequent play. Such a unique year enjoying within the NFL, which has been well documented. Overlaying its bizarre too. A 2-day go-to in Tampa was the primary cease on an abbreviated camp tour for me, 4 camps in 8 days. Then housed to Brooklyn for a compulsory 14-day quarantine. No in-person interviews at workforce amenities. This was my routine Thursday, watch observe on the Bucs 10 feet away from anybody else, then hustle again to room 416 of the Epicurean Resort, 4.5 miles from the Bucs facility, to await cell phone and video conference interviews. Are you in a resort room proper now? Brady, sounding stunned, requested me after I interviewed him Thursday afternoon. Sure, I mentioned. So totally different for everyone, he mentioned. We're making an attempt to type via it like you might be. There's a whole lot of the Brady story to type via, watching him for 2 days. His arm, I assumed, regarded superb, higher than it did late final season. Earlier than attending to that, watch this quick video from Thursday's Observe. NBC videographer Annie Koblitz shot it, and after I was combing via her video Thursday evening to see what I may need missed at Observe, this 46-second piece of tape jumped out at me. It's uncommon for me to make a chunk of video and precise a part of my column, however Koblitz's work is necessary to the Brady Bucs acclimation story that I discovered in Tampa. It exhibits that Brady is doing a heck of a whole lot of teaching. From the far sideline, Koblitz and I had been perhaps 50 yards away from Brady as he ran via an obstacle course and throw drill, and the sound isn't pristine, however it's best to be capable of hear Brady's phrases. I'll describe the scene. You see Rob Gronkowski, wow, there's Gronk, catching a ball from Brady up the fitting seam and placing it away. Then the digital camera pans again to Brady maneuvering out and in of 4 padded dummies, simulating shifting shortly in a crowded pocket. He emerged to loft a go-to-tight finish O.J. Howard up the left sideline. Then Brady known as to Howard. Juice. Brady known as out. Maintain these shoulders square. Then Brady stood in place, pumping his arms like pistons, up and down. Proper right here. Nonetheless pumping his arms. Final minute. ... Catch it in your hip, Brady mentioned, with some garbled phrases within the center. I used to be dying to know what all of it meant. I figured Howard wasn't sprinting full go, and perhaps Brady was urging him to have higher mechanics working. However, final minute and catch it in your hip. ... What was that? So I bought Howard on the cell phone and requested him. You hit it on the top, Howard mentioned. That's Tom teaching me. Tom's been teaching a whole lot of guys one-on-one. When he says, shoulders square, in case you watch me on movie, and he watched me quite a bit, I'd be working a vertical route, not going as quick as I ought to have. That's as a result of I'd be working a vertical route, however I'd look again and it'd gradual me down. He'd say, maintain these shoulders square. Don't decelerate for me. 6, 8 yards, pump your arms, promote it like a go route, I'll get you the ball. Unpacking, within the 2017 draft, Howard was the very best size speed participant of all. At 251 kilos, he ran a 4.51 second 40, and the Bucs made him their first round decide. 3 mess seasons and a few dangerous habits later, right here's Howard on the crossroads, on a tight end-rich workforce, the topic of commerce rumors for the reason that day Gronkowski got here out of retirement to put on the pewter. But when a 4.51 man is peaking again to the road on a regular basis, he's not going to be a 4.51 man, he's negating probably the greatest qualities any NFL tight finish has. Catch it in your hip means, in essence, don't fear, the ball's going to be the place solely you'll be able to catch it. Howard ought to watch tape of ex-Brady faves Chris Hogan and Malcolm Mitchell abusing the Falcons' secondary with precision throws down the stretch within the tremendous bowl comeback win over Atlanta. Comparatively new receivers, in excellent sync with Brady. Cornerback Jalen Collins should nonetheless have nightmares over that fourth quarter and OT. Brady favored what he noticed when Howard got here to Tampa for QB receiver exercises in CUD. And of all the nice weapons Brady has right here, it's maybe the very best arsenal he's ever had, and definitely for the reason that 16-0 Randy Moss year in 2007, the one which regarded the very best within the 2 days I watched was Howard. Straightforward. When Tom does that, Howard mentioned of the teaching level, it's big for me to listen to. I labored on that each one offseason, a nasty behavior I needed to break. He places it in my head each day. That's what a real chief does. He does it in a humble method. So chill. That's Tom Brady, probably the greatest to ever play our recreation, and each day he's bought one thing for me to make me higher. Tom Brady Bucs Camp. Getty Images Bucs quarterback Tom Brady. Getty Pictures. That's going to be an enormous subject for Brady and this group of receivers. Timing. Familiarity. Brady bought rapped for holding casual throwing periods together with his receivers at a non-public college in Tampa within the pandemic, which was bemusing. Phillip Rivers moved to Indianapolis within the spring and threw together with his new receivers. MVP Lamar Jackson had spring periods in South Florida with receivers each on and never on his workforce. However, Brady bought known as out for it. I believe each quarterback and receiver mixture, actually all through the league, they had been throwing to some extent, mentioned tight finish Cameron Brate. I believe we had been the ones who had a helicopter watching us throw. That was undoubtedly a little bit weird. The spring is usually about figuring out timing on routes, getting comfy with the totally different ideas you're working. We had been in a position to do all that this spring. We actually don't really feel like we're too behind the 8 ball proper now. What's totally different for Brady, in addition to every little thing, is the top coach. Bruce Arians is, effectively, he's not invoice Belichick. Arians can chew heads off, however he's a instructing pal to passers. He has coached Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer and Jameis Winston. And now Brady, the 6-time tremendous bowl winner. That's a wealth of quarterback coaching expertise proper there, and Brady is making an attempt to be taught from it. Brady stunned me when he mentioned, "It's my 30th year of enjoying soccer, together with high school, and it's the primary time I've ever had an offensive head coach." That gives one thing a little bit totally different for the quarterback. Just lately, Arians and Brady sat on the facility for 3 hours to speak performs. Not philosophy, simply performs. Arians mentioned, "Present me on the board what you like to do." Brady, Arians mentioned, has adopted a lot of the Bucs verbiage after understanding one offensive language for 20 years. Brady would carry up a play he favored. Arians informed him the particulars of what it was known as. He mentioned, "Oh cool," Arians mentioned. "Tom's used to audibling a lot and we haven't requested our guys to audible that a lot in the previous few years," Arians continued. Going again to coaching Peyton, he'd have 3 performs within the huddle. And he may run a 4th one, as a result of he noticed one thing he favored. Tom can do these kinds of issues. We'll give him these kinds of issues to do however proper now it's simply, let's get all of it down pat, which he most likely has 90% of it within the guide proper now in his thoughts. Arians is satisfied, and has informed Brady this, that he gained it have to fret about making the proper choice on each pass drop. Final season in New England, with a beat-up and lesser group of talent gamers, offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels needed to scheme every little thing intricately to offer a play an opportunity to work, and Brady had little margin for error. This year, Arians mentioned, "It's gonna be quite a bit simpler for what we're doing as a result of I'm not gonna ask him to place us within the excellent play each play." He's bought 2 vast receivers that may beat anyone one-on-one and tight ends and, mainly, in case you learn out our patterns, you'll get to the fitting man. Now for the narrative that follows Brady to Tampa, he doesn't have the arm to suit Arians' deep passing scheme, and to make nice downfield connections with star wideouts Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Arians and offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich sneered at these with that opinion. Peter King, NFL training camp overlaying NFL coaching camp in 2020, video interviews with Tom Brady from a resort room, and Bruce Arians from a automotive. Annie Koblitz NBC Sports activities, they're not that good, Arians mentioned. The man could make each throw. He threw a ball 60 yards the opposite day to wide receiver Scotty Miller that was on a dime. The factor about our offense is you throw it to the man that's open. If Tom sees an open man deep, he takes the shot. If not, learn it out. He and Peyton have that very same attribute. Like, I'm not gonna take a 50-50 shot after I bought a 90% shot beneath. Individuals who say that don't know our offense, Leftwich mentioned. I do know what we actually do. Who he's, and as good as he's. ... He's performed every little thing we ask our quarterbacks to do on this offense. I'm simply telling you, he matches us extraordinarily effectively. I'm fairly certain without the digital camera on, and without understanding his reply to this query could be parsed from Nantucket to the Pacific, Brady's opinion of those that doubt his arm wouldn't have been as diplomatic as this. Everyone's bought an opinion about a whole lot of various things. My opinion is the one which issues to me. In the long run, you'll be able to show them mistaken or show them proper. For me, I've bought the chance to go on the market and play, and I'm going to benefit from it and do what I've all the time performed. I'm simply must go on the market and do it. There are actually no entitlements in soccer. You've bought to earn it in soccer, no matter what you say or suppose, or what anybody says or thinks. It doesn't matter, since you get an opportunity to go on the market and show it. I by no means actually put a whole lot of credence or credit score into what. Quote. Pause. I've a perception or confidence in myself. However, I nonetheless must go do it and show it to myself too, and I believe that's what motivates me and get me going every day. I don't give a s what occurred yesterday, the day earlier than. Right this moment's the day, and that's the place. It's a must to put your time and power. The 43-year-old Brady sounds just like the 38 and 35 and 31-year-old Brady. So the takeaway from the morning: observe Thursday, a day for QB agility drills run by quarterbacks coach Clyde Christensen, one other former Manning mentor, and throwing from a messy pocket and sprinting proper and left and throwing line drives to tight ends, was that Brady was throwing bullets. It felt oppressive, 98 warmth index, and after each drill, Brady took his helmet off and did an entire toweling off of his head and arms. Who can like this climate? Brady's level about it. I really feel like I mastered the chilly climate as a result of I'd, once more, been up there, in New England, for therefore lengthy, and you recognize precisely easy methods to do it. Right here it's a unique kind of inclement climate, so it has its challenges since you sweat a lot. However, I'll get used to that. Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Bucs Training Camp. Brady. Getty Pictures. The Bucs facility is a collection of open fields with an indoor area, just a few lengthy spirals from Raymond James Stadium. Not a lot shade. On Friday, post-pick, the solar and humidity baked the place. As Todd Bowles dispatched additional rushers from totally different paths, Brady bought in a groove. Again, shoulder cross to Mike Evans for 10. Check down to Evans for 5 or so. Intermediate cross to O.J. Howard. A threaded 8-yard curl to Rob Gronkowski between two defensive backs. Shallow cross to Cameron Brate, about an 8-yard out to Brate, whistled. Like a whole lot of his throws this morning, whistled. That's most likely the factor I used to be most stunned with, Brate mentioned of the fastballs. I'm an enormous fan of the sport and form of learn up on totally different columns. I clearly notice the narrative, you recognize. Does Brady nonetheless have it? Can he nonetheless throw the ball at 43? No matter. And, man, he can nonetheless sling it. All of the work we did within the offseason, that's kinda the one factor I used to be actually most impressed with, his potential to throw the soccer. He can nonetheless spin it. Twice, Brady accomplished a minimum of 6 in a row. After a deep overthrow ultimately zoned to little Scotty Miller from bowling inexperienced, the coaches love him, Howard ran a nook route on the left facet, and about 3 yards deep ultimately zone. I'm guessing Brady threw it about 28 yards, the arced go dropped into the bucket of Howard's ready palms. Landing. That nook route felt good, Howard mentioned a pair hours later. That was the very first route me and Tom labored on after we began throwing in could. He wished to speak the precise particulars. Like, break on the half-yard line, hold it sizzling, and I'll lay it in for you. Precisely what occurred right now. Poetry in movement. Later, Howard caught Brady's different TD throw, and choice route down the seam. Tom gave me a glance, Howard mentioned. No matter it was, that's the form of non-verbal communication quarterback and receiver must have below fireplace. Attention grabbing that Howard's bought it with Brady already. Bucs wideout Scotty Miller, left, and tight end O.J. Howard. Getty Images. Bucs wideout Scotty Miller, left, and tight finish O.J. Howard. Getty Pictures. One final spotlight, the 5-9 Miller, a blur with 4.33 velocity, scratching and clawing his method into critical plans right here 2 years far away from the Mid-American Convention. Bought a step on security. Jordan Whitehead working for the fitting pylon, and Brady lofted a 48-yard sky job over the security, proper right into a diving Miller's palms. Nice throw and catch. Seemed like Miller was shaken up as he slow jogged again upfield, however he wasn't letting go of the ball. However he did give it up as he bought again to midfield, the place his mates had been gathered. A minute or so later, Miller nonetheless regarded like he was in discomfort. He walked just a few yards away from the offensive group, took off his helmet, bent over barely and unleashed a torrent of vomit on the bottom. That's a 5 or 10 minute span younger Scotty Miller gained it overlook for some time. General begin for our offense, mentioned Howard. Brady was crisp. I didn't depend, but it surely didn't seem like he took too many checkdowns. These quick throw timing routes, get the snap, whirl left, throw right away, had been well executed. He overthrew Gronkowski on a seam route late, regarded like a type of Brady to Gronk seam completions that lifted the Patriots over the Chiefs in AFC title recreation 19 months in the past. However, nobody's too apprehensive in regards to the chemistry between two of the highest 100 gamers of all time. As for Gronkowski, he regarded good, in wonderful soccer form. It's early. I'd count on the Bucs to preserve him via the season, perhaps utilizing him recurrently within the Crimson Zone, the place he has flourished for therefore lengthy. The large query in regards to the skill player group, is O.J. Howard out there? Reply, no, not over Tom Brady's useless physique. The Bucs are protecting him, barring a ridiculous provide which I doubt could be forthcoming together with his lack of manufacturing. The brass has observed a unique Howard, an excited participant with an extra constructive aura. Who wouldn't wish to play with Brady? I'd guess Howard performs essentially the most snaps of the tight ends, with Brady perhaps just a few greater than Gronkowski, however that's only a guess. With the athleticism and velocity of Howard, the reliability of Brady and the number of weaponry in Gronkowski's toolbox, I gain it be stunned to see Brady make the most of the intermediate threats all three of these guys are. He's all the time beloved throwing to the tight finish, and why wouldn't he if he's bought 3 superb ones? However, as Arians says, this offense requires the quarterback to take some pictures whereas prioritizing the open man. So we'll see. So the information is sweet in the course of August, in Tom Brady's first steps outdoors the Belichick bubble. However, truthfully, if Brady didn't look good on August 14th, there'd be main trigger for concern. It's how he'll look on December 14th that's the query. Will his 43-year-old TB12 ed physique with all the proper components therein look this good in 4 months? As invoice parcels is fond of claiming, they don't promote insurance coverage for that form of stuff. It undoubtedly, at this age, has its challenges, Brady mentioned. I simply must be so diligent with how I deal with myself. There's actually not a whole lot of room for error. All of the pliability remedies I get, there each day. The best way I work out, I've to take heed to that. I've to eat the fitting issues. Gotta keep hydrated, ... I most likely by no means may get away with quick meals and issues like that. Possibly you suppose you'll be able to, however ultimately, I believe these issues all the time catch as much as you. I've had a perception that, for a protracted time frame, that is what my aim could be, and I believe through the years my routine and course of for caring for my physique has gotten higher and higher. That's actually allowed me to get thus far the place I really feel like I have a whole lot of data. I nonetheless bodily really feel like I can throw the soccer effectively and get the job performed. Once more, I've set to work exhausting at it. It's not like there's something simple about soccer on the whole, and definitely in your 40s it will get harder than whenever you had been in your 30s. However, a full season, at 43, on the Brady degree. Can he do it? How'd I look right now on the market at Observe? He mentioned, with fun. Extra Brady, I really feel actually good. I believe my arm is powerful and as sweet and as in shape because it has ever been. I believe each offense calls for some various things and everyone has a unique perception on easy methods to transfer the ball downfield and rating factors. Once more, being in a single place and you've got that familiarity, which is why I believe continuity within the NFL is so necessary. Whenever you have a look at Sean Payton and Drew Brees, they're so on the identical web page with their perception of how to do this, it gives them with a whole lot of margin of error. In an extremely condensed format that we have now, we're actually making an attempt to get on the identical web page. Myself, Byron Leftwich BA, Bruce Arians, making an attempt to actually perceive one another. They clearly understand how I've performed issues. I'm making an attempt to grasp how they do issues in order that it may be as environment-friendly as doable. Are you cheerful? I requested. Yeah, completely, he mentioned. That's phrase. Brady mentioned there have been about 20 elements he thought of, weighted in significance, that he wouldn't identify. Once I added it up, Tampa appeared prefer it was a fantastic alternative, he mentioned. I'm so pleased with the choice I made. He spent a minute or so praising the Patriots, and saying he left on nice phrases, and had nice regard for them. I decided to do one thing totally different, he mentioned. It was a really considerate choice. It wasn't a spur of the second factor. Actually, for the reason that second I bought right here, they've embraced me. They've embraced me with the chance to go and lead the workforce. That's an enormous duty for me. For now, all good on the southern entrance for Brady and the Bucs. There's no cause he can't play effectively with these weapons, and there's no cause the Bucs can't contend for one of many 7 playoff spots within the NFC. Aside from the pandemic, and the Bucs being in the course of an American COVID hotspot, and the unknown of Brady making an attempt to be the oldest beginning quarterback ever to guide a workforce to the postseason. Being across the Bucs for a few days, I believe you gained it have the issue of not sufficient touches to go round, as a result of their simply so worn down by dropping in some ugly, walk-off methods late. Now there's a quarterback who gained its stand for that, if it ever began to bubble up. If the early chemistry experiment on offense works, that is going to be a thrilling workforce to look at. And, I predict, a playoff workforce. Brett Favre was the man I most likely revered essentially the most as a result of he had a lot rattling enjoying the sport. You look over in a tense recreation and he's doing the YMCA within the huddle or one thing. To me, George is paying homage to that. Within the midst of intense conditions, you see an exuberance with him that's particular. It's contagious. San Francisco GM John Lynch after making George Kittle the highest paid tight finish in NFL historical past final week. 2. Fellas, this year is just not like every year we've had within the Nationwide Soccer League. There's gonna be chaos. There's gonna be change. It's gonna come each single day. One workforce will do that higher than the opposite 31. It would as effectively be US. So be prepared for chaos. Embrace it. Embrace it. The workforce that handles it finest is the workforce that has the very best probability of profitable that trophy. Chargers coach Anthony Lynn, in a training camp speech, by way of video conference, to his workforce in laborious knocks. 3. Additionally, don't be the man WHO takes a shish, within the porta potties. I went in there and nearly threw up. Have a little bit social consciousness. That's to take a piss. Don't take a shish, within the porta potties. Rams coach Sean McVay, in a training camp speech, in particular person, to his workforce in laborious knocks. IV. He's a stunning playmaker. He actually fired me up right now. Las Vegas coach John Gruden on Raiders free agent import quarterback Marcus Mariota, in a quote certain to please incumbent starter Derek Carr. V. If the ACC season is moved to the spring, I might inform you with sturdy confidence that there's 0% probability that Trevor Lawrence performs. And now with the massive 10 enjoying the spring, there's 0% probability Justin Fields performs. Pete Thamel of Yahoo Sports Activities, on the Peter King podcast this week, on the destiny of 2 of the highest 2 quarterbacks within the 2021 draft, Clemson's Lawrence and Ohio State's Fields. Which leads us to the 3rd quarterback, presumably, within the 2021 draft, at any time when that's. Subsequently, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will fear about itself. Every day has sufficient bother of its personal. Trey Lance, North Dakota State quarterback, quoting scripture on Twitter final week. Heard of Trey Lance? It's time you probably did. He'll be eligible for the 2021 NFL Draft after a redshirt 2018 season at North Dakota State, enjoying in 2019 fairly famously, and sitting in 2020 after the Bison introduced the workforce wouldn't play the autumn schedule due to COVID-19. Regardless that Lance has performed just one season, he can be eligible for the 2021 draft subsequent spring, as a result of the NFL clock contains years eligible, not years performed. When a participant has been eligible to play for 3 seasons after his high school profession, he can enter the draft the following spring. So the 6'4", 222-pound Lance, who exploded onto the draft scene final fall, can come out if he needs in 2021. No announcement but, however, a lot of hypothesis that he'll come out. North Dakota State quarterback Trey Lance. Getty Images, North Dakota State quarterback Trey Lance. Getty Pictures. So there may very well be a humiliation of riches within the 2021 draft. Think about if the presumptive high 2 picks subsequent spring, Clemson's Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields of Ohio State, are accompanied by the darkest of darkish horses, the uncooked Lance. Mel Kiper leaves open the prospect that he may burst into the Lawrence Fields space on the high of the draft. Pete Thamel, the Yahoo faculty soccer sage, says he'll stand on the desk, that Lance will go within the high 10, and maybe on the early facet of that. However, Good Cash says if Lance does come out, he gained at play in any doable spring 2021 video games for the Bison. Carson Wentz, North Dakota State QB, went second total in 2016. If Lance comes out for the 2021 draft, how will the league decide him if he performs only one season? That is the key downside with no matter occurs with the draft subsequent year. There's no method. NFL scouts and GMs could have something near the identical thought as standard about gamers in 2021. The thriller of Lance can be mentioned endlessly within the subsequent few months. Let's meet him. Have a look at his 2019 stats for the Bison. Video games, 16 comp at 192 to 287 PCT, .669 cross yards, 2,786 TD int, 28 to 0 rush yards, 169 - 1,100 yards per carry, 6.5 TD, 14. 16 video games, 42 passing rushing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. In a league that values an environment-friendly quarterback who can run, sure, that can play. In Toronto, at Scotiabank Environment, the video board operator had thought within the 4th extra time of the Columbus-Tampa Bay playoff hockey recreation Tuesday evening. Overtimes in Stanley Cup video games are 20 minutes lengthy, the identical because the common first, second and third intervals. When signifies that the 4th extra time was the 7th interval, and that gamers on this recreation by this time had performed greater than 2 full video games, primarily. So within the 4th OT, this went up on the video board. It's time for the 7th period stretch. The opposite cute factor about that, in fact, is that there have been 0 followers within the stands to stretch. COVID part. In March, the Falcons employed a communications coordinator for the media relations employees, John Dayton. He began his job in CUT. On Saturday, Dayton was in an enormous white tent adjoining to the Falcons' employees' places of work in Flowery Department, GA, checking in media working the workforce's observe session. He requested me some well-being questions, took my temperature, and okayed me to proceed to observe. John Dayton, who got employed 5 months in the past and began the job in CUT, sat 40 feet away from the Falcons facility, a constructing he has not entered but. The Falcons, as NFL workforce did within the spring, shut its constructing to workers within the spring, with folks working from house, and allow them to again step by step this summer season. Every NFL workforce has 80 gamers and 100 workforce workers allowed in soccer areas. So a restricted quantity from many departments are allowed to be within the constructing, interacting with gamers and coaches. Dayton didn't make the lower from the PR employees. Throughout camp, he works the grounds and the tent, not in a position to be close to the gamers or coaches. Then he'll work just about. NFL life, 2020. A cheerful type, Dayton does lengthy for the times when he'll see what it's actually like contained in the constructing the place he works. Hopefully I see my desk someday quickly, perhaps in 2021, Dayton mentioned. Common part. The 45th decide in 2017 NFL Draft, from Ashland, Ohio College, Chicago's Adam Shaheen, caught 26 passes in his first 3 seasons and was traded to Miami final month for a conditional 7th-round draft decide. The 145th decide within the 2017 NFL Draft, from Iowa, San Francisco's George Kittle, caught 216 passes in his first 3 seasons and signed the richest contract, 5 years, $75 million, for a good finish in NFL historical past final week. Gronk part. Cameron Brate, the Tampa Bay tight finish, enrolled at Harvard the identical year Rob Gronkowski got drafted by the Patriots, 2010. Whereas a scholar and tight finish at Harvard, Brate was a little bit of a Gronk fanboy. He purchased a Gronkowski 87 jersey and wore it round campus. So now they're teammates on the Buccaneers. Within the offseason, Brate was at his mother and father, house close to Chicago, cleansing out a closet, and located the jersey. He took a photograph of it, texted it to Gronkowski and requested, "Ought I throw it away or donate it to Goodwill?" He truly mentioned I ought to hold it, Brate informed me, however I assumed that might be a little bit bizarre. I donated it to Goodwill. Sarasota, Florida. I had the Dickie V expertise Thursday afternoon, and it was superb. I figured Dick Vitale, Maine Bucs fan and idolizer of Tom Brady, would have some great things to say about Brady in Tampa, so I texted to see if I may come down with NBC videographer Annie Koblitz. Vitale lives 55 minutes from the Bucs facility, and get just a few bites from him. 2. On his faculty sports activities take as of late, whether or not they need to play or not play. After all, he mentioned, "Come on down." The instructions he texted had been about 700 phrases lengthy. Vitale, 81, lives on a golf course in a house with an enormous pool, doesn't golf, has been in his pool 3 times in 14 years, however simply loves the realm and the home and the life. We careened from one subject to a different, swerving and breathless and completely without rhyme or cause, as he confirmed us his home and the photo-covered partitions and his memorabilia-filled workplace. In no specific order. I bought one tremendous bowl ball from the Bucs. Now I would like one other. Certainly, in his workplace, there's a tremendous 37 soccer signed by John Gruden after the Bucs beat the Raiders. Dick, you're the very best baby. John Gruden, Tampa. As College of Detroit head coach within the mid-70s, Vitale recruited Lansing megastar Magic Johnson. He could have been the king of Detroit. Did okay in any other case, Vitale admitted. Dick Vitale and Peter King in Sarasota, Florida. Annie Koblitz, NBC Sports. Dick Vitale and Peter King in Sarasota, Florida. Annie Koblitz, NBC Sports activities. I requested him who Tom Brady reminds him of all athletes he's been round. Magic. They're winners. They care about nothing else. Photographs of Vitale with Presidents Obama, Clinton, Bush the youthful, Carter. 2 with Barack Obama. Big photograph of Vitale getting crowd surfed at a basketball recreation at Duke. A photograph of Dickie V kissing Pope Benedict XVI's ring in Italy. I informed Lorraine, after I get shut, you be sure to stand up and snap an image. I gotta have an image. So she bought as much as take it, and what do they name these guys, the Swiss Guards? They swarmed her. They informed her she couldn't try this, so she sat down. Seems a secret photographer, out of sight, bought a jillion photos, and the Vitales purchased all of them. A platinum Kenny Chesney album on the wall of one staircase. I did the intro to his live shows on one tour, and he dispatched me that. In high school, Garfield, NJ, he had a mad crush on the woman who would turn into Greg Schiano's mother. A couple of instances, he mentioned his mother and father could be so thrilled to see his life right now. They taught me, Richie. By no means imagine in can't. They all the time mentioned, be good to folks and other people can be good to you. Quote. The 2020 Dick Vitale Gala, benefiting the combat to eradicate most cancers in youngsters, got postponed due to the virus. So he determined to do a digital gala. So many individuals helped. An excellent buddy of mine mentioned, "I'll offer you $1 million bucks, however you've bought to boost 1 million within the subsequent 24 hours, after which I'll match it." So I begin asking round. And Mark Cuban agrees to give $500,000. Mark Cuban baby. His aim this year for the September 4th occasion, $7 million. He carries a laminated card of St. Jude, the patron saint of misplaced causes to Catholics, in his again pocket. He's performed that his complete grown-up life. He talked about Notre Dame, most likely 14 totally different instances in 90 minutes. He loves the Irish, has a photograph of Ara Parsegian on the wall. "I'll actually miss it there this year if we don't go." Goes to a few or 4 soccer video games in a season usually. On his life, "I'm in 14 corridor of fames and I can't run or leap or shoot. Plus, I've a physique by rigatoni. Wow, am I blessed." Earlier than we depart, he palms Annie a connect with Dickie V card, together with his handles on social media. Annie. Vitali, 81 happening 17, hollers. "Will you comply with me on Twitter?" 2. Billboard in southern Georgia on I-75. "I'll be again." Jesus http://www.i-will-be-back.org. 3. Flashing signal on I-24 south of Nashville. "COVID-19 wear a mask, we're all in this together." Attaway, Tennessee.